So good morning. Welcome. It's lovely to see you. We have another day to think about the armour of God. And we're getting near the end of it now. We've been through lots of things, and I hope I've given you something to think about. And we come today to a simple matter of the helmet of salvation, which, like most things, you don't deal with your head until the rest of you is clothed. There's no point in getting your hair nice, for us ladies. If you've got to put your garment over your head, you get dressed first and put on the helmet of salvation. And the helmet was a protection for the whole head and for the neck, and had cheek flaps down the side to protect the side of your face. And you couldn't go into battle without it. And thinking about it, the helmet of salvation, what does salvation mean for us? It means your past is dealt with. You've come to Jesus for salvation, and everything that's behind you is behind you. It's dealt with. It's finished. It's wiped clean off the board that had a list of all the things that you'd done. Jesus has dealt with them all. And there's no account against you. There's no record against you, because God has dealt with it on your behalf. And you don't stand, you will never be condemned as long as you trust in Jesus. And that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And our future is secure and our past is dealt with. And we have begun to live eternal life. And therefore, our mind is fixed on the core of our life. And our thoughts are being regularly transformed as we read the scriptures, as we meditate on them, and we think about them, and we apply them to our thinking and to our ways. Just as we look in a mirror and we brush our hair and tidy our face, clean our face, if somebody says, you've got a smudge on your, you've got a bit of paint on your, if you've been painting, you've got a bit of paint on your cheek, you go to the mirror and look, and you deal with the paint. And when God points anything out to us that we are doing that is not pleasing to him, we look in the mirror of his word and we deal with it. And our minds are being transformed as we offer ourselves daily as a sacrifice to God. So we live perpetually with the helmet of salvation on. And so we should. And I find it very interesting to discover and to be reminded that there is a verse in Isaiah, it's Isaiah 59:17, that says, he put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation upon his head. And it's interesting to see, as with many, many, many things in the New Testament, it's foretold in the Old Testament. The armour of God is even there in Isaiah, who prophesied long before the Romans it came into existence, and before the Roman soldiers' armour was put together. God said he put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation upon his head. We need that helmet of salvation. We need to be sure where we've come from. We need to be sure that we are given to the Lord and he is living in us. We need daily to be filled with his Spirit. We need to maintain and look after our helmet of salvation and our armour. Keep it well, keep the upkeep of it, any repairs, any damage in any skirmish we've been involved in. And one last thought about the helmet of salvation is that there was no mass production in those days. Every single helmet was made to fit the soldier who was going to wear it. That's a very interesting thought, because if you're like me, even when I was growing up, when I was a teenager at school, it was back in the days when we all had to wear hats. All the girls had to wear hats and all the boys had to wear caps going to school. So we had a winter hat and a summer hat. And I have to tell you that the largest hat was not big enough for me to wear, because my head has always been big. And if I buy a standard hat for anything, I have to have it stretched because otherwise it doesn't fit me. So I can understand from first-hand knowledge what it meant for a soldier to have his helmet fitted and made to fit him, because I know if I have ever worn a hat for any special occasion, that after only wearing it for a short period of time, if it is not stretched and fitted properly, it will cause me to have a headache. It was important for the soldier to be comfortable in the helmet of salvation. And your helmet of salvation and my helmet of salvation are different. They will be different. They will fit us. God has dealt with different things in our lives. Things that were difficult for you perhaps were not difficult for me, and things that are difficult for me perhaps are not something you struggle with. But the helmet of salvation, our salvation, is a personal thing, because the way God found us and brought us to faith is different for each of us. So we each have our own helmet of salvation, our own set of memories of what God has done for us to maintain our salvation through our lives. And when we need to, we remember the wonderful things God has done in our lives. And our minds need to be stayed on God. Our minds need to be filled with good things to remember, good things to think about, not evil. If we ponder and dwell on what the enemy is going to do or might do, and on the possibility of him winning the battle that we're in, the skirmish that we're in, then we are weakened in our resolve to stand against him. And as that passage says so often, having done everything, we're going to stand. We're going to stand in the salvation that Jesus has won for us. So put on your helmet today and have a great day. See you tomorrow.